Does anyone remember 2013? Like, that was a big year for anime. We had the inception of the isekai genre as we know it today and the end of Ore-emo. And some good shows like Ace of Diamond, Golden Days, Oregairu, and obviously Attack on Titan, which became such a big hit that even randos on the street had seen it. But that summer also saw the release of Free, the swimming anime, which was unique at the time because it was a completely original work that heavily relied on the aesthetic features of its main characters, which, for once, were all male. It was the first big anime that did fan service for women. Although I wasn't a big fan of Free myself, I was surprised at the quality of the show. It wasn't nearly as fanservy as I had expected, and it really did make an effort to stand out from the rest. And although the story wasn't, great or anything, there really was substance behind it. The characters had personality, there was emotion at the core of the plot, and the art looked pretty nice. But yeah, it wasn't as good as the fangirls hyped it up to be. So you can imagine my surprise a year later when the second season drove me to tears because of its relatability and realness. While the first season had been meandering and pandering, the second season had a clear and effective narrative on both an internal and external level, which got wrapped up beautifully in a neat little bow at the end. That was a beautiful ending to a show, and I really wish that had been the end of it. Since then, we've had some OVAs, a compilation film, a prequel film, all of which rest comfortably around the 6 out of 10 mark, but, then they went ahead and made another season. Thanks, I hate it. I think the biggest problem with season 3 is that it wasn't needed. It's like, what could possibly be the conflict this time then? Nothing? And it truly is nothing. This time around, the characters from Iwatobi Swim Club have finally gone to university and are trying to reach a global level with their swimming. The emotional core is situated between the protagonist Nanase Haruka and his former friend Kirishima Ikuya. To understand their relationship, you have to have seen the prequel movie, which shows how they swam together in middle school for a bit before Haru unexpectedly quit swimming altogether and Ikuya went to America feeling bitter and betrayed. The reason for Haru quitting swimming was his unfortunate meeting with Rin, which is described in the first season. Anyway, Ikuya is still pretty mopey about that, and he stopped doing medleys altogether because he doesn't want to be let down again. So they meet up in Tokyo, everyone's in Tokyo now, and Haru, whose internal conflict has been completely resolved in the last 2 seasons, really wants to apologize to Ikuya. However, Ikuya's new boyfriend Hiyori doesn't want Haru to get near Ikuya, and they kinda just bicker about that for the first half of the season. I find it incredibly contrived that Hiyori can just decide that none of Ikuya's former friends can see him, but I guess they had to fill the runtime with something. In order to reach out to Ikuya, Haru enters the individual medley and learns how to swim all the different strokes that he swore he never would. And it's kind of sweet that he finally feels so at ease with himself that he could do that for a friend. Also, it works because swimming with Haru is some kind of magic that just makes everyone happy again. However, when Haru and Ikuya make up, we are only at the halfway point in the show. The internal conflict is resolved here in its entirety, which leaves another half season without an emotional core. And it shows. Nothing really happens in the next few episodes until the very end, where everyone swims in the All Japan Invitational or whatever it's called, to try to qualify for the global level. I guess that means the World Championship, but I'm not really sure. And in the final episode, it seems like there's a build-up to a swim-off between Haru and Rin, which is a bit weird and sudden, but it ends on a cliffhanger. Like, we don't even get to see who makes it. I mean, I guess we get to see it in 2020, but also now we probably don't. And this is so odd. None of the other seasons or films or OVAs have ever ended on a cliffhanger, and it makes me really annoyed because we already had a perfectly good ending to the show. But the worst part, really, is that all of this is just scratching the surface. 1. Too many characters. This anime has too many characters, and that becomes a big roadblock for any kind of story to happen. All the characters from season 1 are there, all the characters from season 2 are there, all the characters from the prequel movie are there. Even minor characters suddenly get a lot more screen time, I'm guessing because they were popular among the fans, but come on, we only have 12 episodes! And on top of that, there are so many new characters too. There are trainers, students, and even kids. Even in the last episode, they're still introducing new characters, and every single one of them has to meet and have some kind of moment with one another. Come on, tell me the story already. Also, I think they've gone way overboard with the whole gimmick that all the swimmers have girl names. Like, none of this feels real anymore. 2. Haruka's character. Haru is easily one of my favorite characters ever. Even before season 2, I really adored him because of his unwavering passion. But here, he doesn't do anything. His character arc was completed in the last 2 seasons, so he's like super at ease with himself, which makes him, quite frankly, a boring protagonist to follow. Throughout the season, we can see several potential conflicts for him to encounter or deal with, but nothing ever becomes of it because we have to watch what all the other characters are up to. For example, one guy tells Haru that it seems like everyone who swims with him ends up getting hurt, which kind of throws Haru off for a minute. And I'm just like, no! Let me see Haru grapple with this and fight it and overcome it with the help of his friends. Then Haru swims in the individual medley so that he can reach out to Ikia. Haru has always said that he will only swim free, but all of a sudden he's willing to swim all these other strokes. I mean, I said it's sweet, and it is, but this too kind of just happens out of nowhere and is left unexplored. It could have been interesting to see Haru struggle to find a way to reach Ikia other than the Hiyori roadblock, and eventually having to compromise his swimming to do that. But no, he just decides to swim all these strokes, and we never get to see how exactly he makes this decision. Another thing that comes up a couple of times is that Haru loses in a swimming race. He's not the best swimmer out there anymore. Sure, he has talent, but he's in Tokyo now where the big boys play, and he's got to step up his game if he wants to stay in it. There's some hinting at that these losses upset him, but in the end, nothing happens. He just, shrugs it off and that's that. How about we see some insecurity about being good enough? 3. Makoto's character. I've never been a fan of Makoto, but this season he really grinds me the wrong way. He's the most clingy, melodramatic, sentimental person I ever saw, and he sucks. He doesn't do anything, he just is there. He gets more upset that Haru loses than Haru himself and tries to make a big deal of it. But as we've seen, Haru isn't upset about that, so it's just stupid melodrama that doesn't go anywhere. Makoto's story arc with this kid is also really dumb. There's like this little boy who swims in a club where Makoto works part-time. And of course this kid wants to swim with his friend that moved away. It's dumb because it mirrors Haru and Rin's story from season 1, but it doesn't add anything new to the narrative. It's just repetition for the sake of repetition. And all of a sudden, Makoto realizes that he wants to be a swimming coach, and that's supposed to be his character arc. But that won't fly with me because that was his exact character arc last season. It's almost as if they didn't have a story to tell, so they just rehashed a bunch of stuff from previous seasons. And that's lazy writing. Show me something new already. 4. The new characters. Thanks, I hate them. 5. Theme. The first 2 seasons were about Haru and his friends being confined by negative experiences from the past, and through mending their relationships with each other, they were able to discover a feeling of freedom in the water. This was especially effective when Haru kinda forgot why he was swimming in the first place in season 2, because the only reason he did swim was to feel free, and when he started getting pressured to swim competitively, he lost that feeling. It was an amazing arc because of the raw emotion in it, and when Haru finally opened up to his friends about how he felt, you could tell he was really growing up. There is no theme in the 3rd season. It feels like this was made just because they could make money from it, and not because they had a story they wanted to tell. There were plenty of seeds planted throughout the season, but nothing is ever addressed or followed up on. I suppose there's a chance they might bring some of it up in the next season, should it ever be released, but so far there has been nothing at stake and nothing to tell. This is such a nothing season. And even if we get the 4th season, I'm not sure I would watch it. Because at this point, it feels like the show just rides on its popularity from 6 years ago. But the anime is pretty dead now, barely anyone watches it anymore, and it's almost as if the creators know this and only craps out these half-assed sequels for the handful of superfans who are willing to pay up for the chance to see their boyfriends one more time. And they can keep making this mediocre shit for all I care. But to me, the true ending took place back when the show was still good.